Greetings and salutations, cohort 5-3. Dr. Kim, happy week 5. I hope everyone is continuing to stay safe and healthy. So, one of the things that I've been working with my mentor on, in terms of how I'm going to structure this or how I'm going to participate in this PLC is trying to figure out a way so that I'm not saying, okay, basically, here's the data that I've collected in my tenure at graduate school and let's go from there. Is really making sure that we're opening up discussions, just having honest thoughts and observations. What are you noticing? What trends do you see? So that everybody has a voice. I think having that hard data, of course, is critical, but it's also, again, it's more than, our students are more than numbers on papers or percentages and things like that. In the reading by Park, they described how the instructional coach would meet with the TLC's grade level teams. And it sounds very similar to how we do our data days at my school. And I really appreciate the fact that they talk about, reframing. So it's not just a data dump, but making it more of a collaborative endeavor and making our students, the center of these discussions. And from the Marsh et al. Reading, I appreciated the phrase change in delivery, change in delivery in response to data that they collected. One of the goals for me when working with gen ed staff, general education teachers, and staff is to have them really look at how they take data, because it's not just, okay, I give this student the STAR test, I already whatever diagnostic measures they're using, but looking at, like, and I like how they talked about, we looked at data and looked at the change in delivery, right? Because sometimes it could be something as simple as noting down the time of the day, because that can influence data. So it's not just the student is the numbers on the page, but maybe that, you did a math fluency test this week before lunch, and then you looked at it after lunch. Does that make a difference? It may or may not. But again, it's really looking at all of those nuanced ways, because our kids are not these, robotic people. Throughout the day they change. From day to day they change, as we know. So we may need to say, like, okay, the student seems to struggle when we do the hard stuff in the afternoon. Let's maybe do some of the intense instruction in the morning. And look, I have the data to show. Here are the, I did 5 diagnostic tests in the morning, 5 diagnostic tests in the afternoon. So that's just one way to look at reframing that change of delivery. And in addition to our quantitative data, right? Because obviously that is important, and often it's based on standardized testing. I think it's important to throw back to our summer class to look at that street data, which we learned about from the book by Sophia and Dugan, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and how they talked about the emotional system was really never meant to serve marginalized students. And those are the students that are at my school, and also in the reading at the school, the Billings Elementary School, that they discussed in the park reading. So to give an example of how that street data is, last week our school had parent-teacher conferences, and I sat in about 4 or 5 conferences for some of my students, and I kept thinking this runs so counter to all the things we talked about in or throughout all of our classes, but just in terms of family engagement, right? I mean, the teacher talked for, give or take 15 to 18 minutes out of a 20-minute conference, talks about the rules and procedures, the structure of the school, our PBIS program, and then they shared like some brief anecdotal information about the student, and then again, that standardized testing. This is what they did on STAR math, STAR reading. This is where they should be. This is where they are. And I was overwhelmed by the conference. I thought, like, I need to take a break. I need a breath. It just felt like a lot of information coming at me, and I wanted to know, how's the child doing with this adjustment back to school? Our students were home for 18 months or whatever it came out to, 15, 16 months. How are they doing? What strengths do the parents see? What are the areas of concern the parent may have? I think all of that data, right? Because that's data, that's information that we don't have. And the only way we're going to have it is by collecting it directly from the source, which is, the parents and guardians. It's critical and it's often missed. And I think that's what Park was referring to in that triangulation piece, right? Asking for multiple types of data. The students at this point, even though they're back in school, they're still home more than they are with us. And the families spend so much time during the pandemic as the instructor. So I think that their anecdotal stuff. All right, let's continue. I lost my makeshift teleprompter here. So I just wanted to talk about Dr. Kim did mention that I met with him during office hours this week. Greatly appreciate you being available on a Saturday morning. So thank you very much. I've been talking about this with my mentor, and I wanted to meet with Dr. Kim. I want to look at working with my PLCs around the SST process. And so, of course, I want to go in thinking I'm going to, revitalize this process and fix it. But, I think that's a daunting task, and really making sure that it's collaborative, that takes time. So I pulled back, said, can we just narrow the focus, just looking at the referral process, right? So essentially, how do we even begin with this SST process? Helping the teachers to understand this is not a one-way express train to, I have concerns, special education placement. And that's again where that data becomes important. Looking at, the percentage of students in my school, in my district as well, but particularly in my school site, who are Latinx, whether they're emerging bilingual students or not, we have a high percentage, approximately 16%, who have been referred for who have some sort of special education services, and being able to show the teachers, say, listen, this is unusual. So, let's take a step back and look, because whether it's covertly or overtly, we may have some culturally implicit bias that are occurring. So I think, again, that's a great opportunity for the use of data, but really narrowing that focus to say, what are we doing before we even think there's an issue? In particular, we have to factor in, of course, again, the pandemic. So that's where I'm at. Thank you again, everyone, for listening, and have a great week.